Greetings, this is dslyecxi, and welcome to what I have apparently dubbed as Musings on Serious Fun. What I'd like to do with this series is simply talk about my experiences running and being a part of a community over the years. The overall intent here is to share experiences, anecdotes, lessons learned, successes, failures, and anything else that can help to take what I've personally experienced over the years and put it into a form that's valuable to others. Some of this will be in a questions and answers sort of format, where I'll respond to different questions posed to me through comments, emails, or similar, but I also intend to tangent on the topics of my own choosing, things that people might not know to ask about, or that I find particularly interesting. This initial episode will be an example of that. Bear in mind that this is how it's been for me and my community, but that's not to say it's how it has to be for anyone else, or that we're doing everything right, or that I have all the answers. I don't. I'm looking for them, I'll keep looking for them, but we all know none of us will ever have all of them nailed down. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try, though. I hope what I can share through this will help you find whatever it is that you seek. Finally, let me note that the last time I did a Q&A video was 7 years ago. I stopped after doing 2 of them back then. And maybe that's something worth talking about in a future video, the why of that. For now, I'll simply say that the person sitting here right now has 7 years worth of lessons learned that the prior me didn't. And I hope that the answers I'll be able to give as a result are that much more meaningful. Today, I want to talk primarily about a few different means that I've personally used to chronicle what ShackTac has been doing over the last 15 plus years. The Marine Corps was a big early influence on how I formed the group, since I created ShackTac only a few months after leaving the Corps. The Corps is an institution that's proud of its history and does a great deal to both preserve it and teach it to new Marines, instilling in them the significance of what they're becoming a part of. As ShackTac started to come together in that first year, I decided to start doing something to chronicle our history in a more concrete way. Something that any new member could look back on to see the history of the organization they were joining. This became a yearly tradition, one which would prove invaluable in short order, which became known as the Year in Review. For those of you on the outside of the group, you probably hear that and think I'm referring to the videos that I and other members put out, chronicling the year's events. Those are a facet, yes, but the Year in Review for ShackTac is much more than those public-facing videos. Every year, starting in November, an internal process begins in which every member of the community individually writes up their thoughts about the year and sends them my way. By mid-December, this will have concluded, and meanwhile, I'll have been working on an article giving a broad perspective on everything that happened to the community over that year. This article takes an enormous amount of research, of fact-checking, and time to construct. It's helped in part by a spreadsheet I keep that I make entries in as notable events happen throughout a year, which helps to give a clear timeline of key happenings in a way that's more accessible than trying to untangle it all at the end of a year, and also allows for private, more personal aspects to be noted when relevant. This year-end article is posted at the start of January, with our anniversary being the 4th, and it acts as a way to share our successes, our hardships, and plans for the future. I've written articles on every year of our group's history from 2006 to now. The current word count for them is roughly 340,000 words, which, to put it in context, is larger than the first Game of Thrones book, which clocks in at roughly 300,000. To further put it in perspective, my entire Arma 3 Tactical Guide, TTP3, is about 160,000 words, and that's a pretty chunky piece of writing when you have it in physical form. So these year in review articles are substantial. I can't emphasize enough how important this process has been for the group, and how much I treasure what's come from it. 15 years is a hell of a long time to be evolving a community, and the amount that can happen in a year with so many moving parts and people and pieces is such that relying on memory alone will inevitably result in lost history and retrospective shifts of the story. Having a contemporaneous historical write-up informed by candid feedback from every member of the community allows for a great deal of what happened to be written into our group history in an accessible, timeless fashion. A personal aspect of this that goes beyond the group accessible articles is simply the wealth of feedback that these emails represent. When you take them in the context of a person's evolution within the group over a span of years, you end up with fascinating insights into character growth, perspective, maturity, the real-world significance of the group's impact on members, and so much more. Now, these are not my stories to directly tell, but being privileged to have them shared with me has been invaluable for understanding the impact of decisions made or events that occurred over the course of any given year. Between the year in review emails that I'm sent and the articles that I write, an incredible amount of the group's history has been preserved. The articles alone are a tremendous resource, but being able to go back and look specifically at different members' perspectives at the close of a given year through their emails gives even greater insight into what was happening member to member. It is absolutely fascinating. If you're leading a group, I'd recommend thinking about how you can keep track of your history. What I'm describing for ShackTac certainly isn't the only way to do it. The important part is just finding a solid way to get candid feedback from your members at regular intervals and chronicling your history for posterity. As the years pass, the value of that history grows greater, and being able to reflect on everything you and your friends have gone through over the years, the challenges you've faced, the victories you've won, it's a sublimely satisfying experience. The next thing I'll note, which is something I would strongly recommend any prospective group founders make a priority, is logging. Specifically, logging administrative actions and conversations. ShackTac used Skype for many years prior to our move to Discord, and to this day I have all of that, every single conversation with every single member that came through the group, safely archived in a redundant fashion. Memories shift and fade, emotions color recall, and impressions become stories that don't necessarily align with the recorded facts of a situation. Every single conversation that has ever happened at an administrative level in ShackTac with me has been archived in this fashion. Every single discussion relating to administrative, HR, or anything else is accessible to me whenever the need arises. This is a priceless treasure for retrospection. Now, aside from the pure historical value itself, one of the other benefits of keeping these sorts of logs relates to drama. There will inevitably be people who leave a group on bad terms. For us, this is pretty rare, but pretty rare multiplied by 15 years is still enough people to make noise. Some percentage of these people will have an axe to grind, and they'll try to libel and slander you and your community. For instance, we had one person who was in a probationary period in ShackTac very early on, for less than a month, who was dropped for behavioral issues. And this person was still shitting on the community in public 10 years later. Not all of them were like that, not by far, but it does happen, and people can hold grudges for a very long time. Someone with an axe to grind will have their version of events to tell, and inevitably this will bias in their direction. It's human nature. Their side of the story will favor them, your side or the group's side will be minimized, misrepresented, or just left out. When they quote you, you'll be able to look back at the logs of the exchange in question and see what was actually said, as well as the context surrounding it. You will have a fact to reference, whereas they'll likely be operating off of an impression colored by emotion, time, distance, and even pure reinforcement from others who felt they were in a similar position. Now, you might think I'm about to say that you can use that information to refute or dispute them in public. If you've followed me long enough and you're familiar with some of the public blowups that have happened like this before with ShackTac, you'd recognize that this tactic isn't something I've done in response. Having that information available isn't something you do because you plan to defend yourself in public. It's something you do for your own mental health, your own well-being, and to ensure that the ground truth of what happened is never warped by the emotionally charged distortions that an aggrieved person might tend towards. Now, there's a world of discussion to be had about drama, but that's all I want to go into for the moment. The important takeaway is that keeping logs will give you a wonderful resource for reflecting on your community's evolution and will help you keep your sanity if someone starts peddling a warped reality. So, as far as chronicling goes, those two elements, the year in review process and logging, are the submerged part of the iceberg. This next part, YouTube, is the public-facing tip of it. So let's go into how YouTube factors into all of this. ShackTac is a community that grows and evolves over time. YouTube is a window into specific facets of the community, our in-game armor experiences primarily. Each video represents a moment in time captured and lifted up into a broader view, something tangible that can last in a timeless clarity for any who want to see it. As the surrounding moments distort and dim in our memories, those uplifted sequences remain clear. The story they tell, the progression they show, the evolution they represent, can be relived by anyone interested enough to spend the time. One of the themes that comes up in questions or comments involves what exactly YouTube is to me specifically. People will make comments like wanting to see me take a certain role or do a certain mission concept or expand my, air quotes, content to some other game or similar, or even stream sessions. So I understand where these comments come from. YouTube as a whole is filled with people who are chasing something, and they know that part of the way to find success is to get as much engagement as possible to make people develop a parasocial relationship with them and to appear to be responsive and accommodating towards their community's expressed wishes. Plenty of people have found great success with this. But it's not who I am. It's not why I do this. And to be quite honest, people doing this make me personally uncomfortable. It's one of the reasons that I have trouble watching streamers. But that's a me thing. When I'm making session videos, it's because I want to store these experiences in that tangible form that I can share with my community, as well as anyone else on the outside who might find some vicarious enjoyment through it. Having these videos allows me to look back on experiences that otherwise might have become dampened, distorted, or even forgotten in the passage of time. And it chronicles something that I've poured an enormous amount of my own time into. The fact that there's an interest in this outside of ShackTac is something I've commented on being surprised by before. And it's been a bonus aspect to making those videos. It's validation and encouragement, but it's not the source of the spark in the first place. Nor is it a sustaining flame. It is a welcome warmth, but the fire that's still burning started long before any of you saw a video of mine. You, and I mean my YouTube audience, are a collection of people I'll largely never know in any significant capacity. I appreciate you collectively as an expression of interest in what I do and what I've helped to create and sustain. And I like the idea that what I do brings some entertainment to your life, that I can share my experiences with you, and you get something from that. The world is rough. It's rewarding to think that a joy experienced can then be shared and multiplied in the process, that thousands of people will in some small way have their day brightened vicariously. That's incredibly cool. It's easy for that familiarity to lead to a parasocial dynamic. So to be clear, when I'm playing Arma, I'm doing that for myself. I'm not thinking of you. I'm not talking to you. I'm not referencing chat. I'm not making decisions based on things you've said. And I'm not choosing roles to provide a specific kind of, quote, content for you. I don't fill the air with endless talking to try to entertain you because that's not who I am. I don't pander to you. I don't play things up. I don't put on a persona. I don't tell you that you're awesome or try to tribalize you into the dyslexi army or something like that. There's no Discord server to draw you further into a parasocial orbit, or worse, to foster a personality cult. I don't stream our sessions, in part because streaming implies live interaction with an audience, and I feel that corrupts what I seek through ShackTac. What you're seeing in my videos is who I actually am and how I actually play. I'm doing what I do because it's what I like to do. It's a ton of fun. And whether or not the way that I have fun appeals to the broadest possible audience or makes them feel a strong parasocial relationship is just not a factor whatsoever. I'm gaming with friends. Our collective experience is, and it will always be the point of it all. I'm glad you get something from it as well, and I appreciate your interest and enthusiasm. I hope you can appreciate why things are the way that they are for me. Creating videos is my way of both sharing the joy of the present as well as being able to keep the past alive. I think what I'm doing with ShackTac is pretty damn neat. I'm proud of the collection of people we've gathered over the years, and I want to keep a record of the fun times I've had with them. YouTube is ultimately just another facet of our history, and I'm far from the only person who celebrates our journey through it. So those are three of the most significant aspects of chronicling the adventures of ShackTac for me. History and the preservation of that history means a great deal to me, and if you find yourself in the position of forming or leading a community, it's worth taking the time to figure out how you want to record and preserve your journey. The best time to have started such an effort was at the start of a group, but barring that, the second best time is now. And with that, let's conclude episode 1 of this series. I have a lot of questions I want to get to over the course of this, so as long as people are interested in hearing the answers, I'll do my best to keep putting these out. If you have a question of your own, feel free to post in the comments and I'll consider it for the future. Thank you for your time and for listening. And until next time, take care.